aka Miss WC Reader, and welcome back to my channel. Let's stop for a moment and just talk about how November is not shaping up to be the reading month I thought it was going to be. I mean, technically it's keeping in line with 2024 as a whole. Like, 2024 has just not been a good year for reading. The books have been dull. The books have been formulaic. Even the debuts, just like, there hasn't really been a lot of standouts. They just haven't been hitting. And it feels like everybody is writing the same type of book, using the same type of language, following the same trends, and I'm kind of like burnt out of reading almost. Like, it's getting bad. So let's get into everything that I read in the month of November thus far. I kicked off November with The Love Interest. This is by Helen Comerford. This one was actually like a decent YA read. It is about this girl named Jenna Ray. She lives in a small town that was prophesized to have a new superhero arise from it. In the world in this book, superheroes are born and immediately reported and tagged and monitored by a special superhero organization. One thing that I didn't love about this book was it had like a very feminist stance to it, which would not be a problem if it explored feminism's intersectionalities, specifically what it means to be a feminist and a woman of color. Because what I find in YA is whenever it has a feminist message, the feminist message is usually just girls can do whatever boys can do. And in this particular story, superheroes are mainly men, and it's a very patriarchal society, or at least we're told. I really don't feel like the society feels that much different than the one we currently live in, which is also very patriarchal, but still. It took the stance of like girls should be able to be their own heroes, which is great, but at the same time, Black women have always had to be our own heroes. We are always expected to rescue everybody, and I read this right before the election too, so it's interesting to see some of the conversations we had after election season. Like, Black women have never been able to just step back and be that damsel in distress. So when I pick up books by authors like this, she is a biracial author, like, I am wondering if they actually think about that during their writing process when they want to give this very feminist message. Aside from that, it was pretty fun. I did like a lot of the jokes. I loved the way the world was built up with these heroes, and I don't really know where things are going to go in book 2. Like, it did set it up in a way where there's plenty of threads to follow through, and there's a lot of people who got powers who didn't realize they have powers. So it should be interesting to see where it goes. I want a little bit more character development from the characters as well. I feel like we really got to know Jenna Ray, and I like the anxiety rep here, but we really didn't get to know her love interest Blaze too much. And so for her to have this sudden love for him, I didn't quite buy it. I did love the fun stuff about like going to the superhero cons and stuff like that. I read The Fraud Squad finally by Kyla Zhao. This one started off really interesting. What intrigued me about it is because I thought we were going to have this like fraud scheme going on in this glitzy, glamorous world, and we didn't quite have that. There was no actual fraud going on. Basically, Samantha Song really wants to work for one of those elite fashion magazines, and to get those jobs in Singapore, it's all about who you know. She works in PR and kind of lives vicariously through a wealthy friend who works alongside her. She convinces the son of the owners of the firm to bankroll her as a socialite to try and prove to his parents that he is actually good at PR and can generate buzz, so that he can go off and do the career of his choice, which that really didn't make any sense and was very flimsy. But I would have went with it if like there was some actual scheming and stuff done. She uses her real name and just kind of like lies a little bit about her background. So not really fraud. They're not scamming anybody like I expected. And overall, she's just like using her knowledge of the fashion world from reading all these magazines to fit into the spaces, while also offering the perspective of somebody who is on the ground in conversations. She doesn't really start to change too much personality wise until like the second half of the book, and by then like I felt like not much was going on. Also, the way Singapore is portrayed here, it just feels a lot like the UK. And I can't speak on how Singapore elite society is. I did see some reviewers talk about it and how they didn't feel like it was good representation for that. I would have loved to see more of the culture because, like I said, it just felt like the UK or even New York. It didn't give me distinctly Singapore. And I needed just a lot more drama than this book was willing to give. Like, we got a lot of designer duds and stuff, but that was about it. So it ended up falling very flat for me. I finally read the third book in the supernatural investigation series, Amari and the Despicable Wonders. So I really did enjoy Amari and the Night Brothers. There's a couple of things I can critique about it, but I thought it was a pretty enjoyable read. But the follow-ups just haven't hit the same mark for me. Like, I appreciate how they removed like all like the additional racism that was in Amari and the Night Brothers, because I feel like that added layer of her being a poor black girl among these rich white people was just a little extra. And now the focus has been more on she's a magician in a world that hates magicians. But I don't feel like B.B. Alston had a clear vision of how this series was supposed to play out, which is interesting because he signed on for 2 more books. I think this type of series would have worked better if there was kind of like a monster of the book, like that they were targeting each book. But he's kind of stretched out the Dylan plotline across 3 books, and I was done by the halfway mark. I really was. I was looking forward to seeing more of Quentin since we got all this build up from him the previous 2 books. But instead, he's barely on page, and then when he's on page, he's more of a nuisance. I didn't understand why all the adults in this book were so gung-ho on Amari, who was powerless at the time, stepping up and fighting these people with the possibility of being killed because she didn't even have magic to protect her. That didn't make any sense to me. I didn't buy her strong friendship with Laura. I felt like Dylan was portrayed as too much of a cartoon villain. Too many mythological figures were thrown in just to say they were here. They didn't have strong impact. I found like a lot of the characters just didn't have strong impact in this one. They were mostly there to be Amari's cheerleaders. So while I consider this book better than book 2 in that it had more going on, it was like more interesting. I still couldn't like really love it, and I actually almost forgot that I read it until like a couple of days later when I'm like, oh, I never put anything on Goodreads about it, because like it just didn't have that strong impact that I expected it to have. And towards the end, it was a little confusing as far as the wonders and the stuff he was writing about it. And then the book is going on, like series is supposed to go for 2 more books, but I just really don't see the direction. And I like when I end a book in a series to have like a satisfying conclusion for that book, but to also be like have an idea of like where things could go in the future, and that just was not had here. The Grim Reaper's Lawyer by Mia Monique. This one is a contender for worst book of the year. It was so bad. And I didn't even realize this one was like semi-popular on TikTok until after I went to check the reviews. What happened to me is like I just saw it pop up on Hoopla. So I always give praise to Hoopla about having a great algorithm. Like they really know on Hoopla what I wanna read based off of what I've already read. And I see stuff coming up in my recommendations all the time that are books that I read and already enjoyed. So I saw the cover and I was intrigued. I'm like, oh, this is different. I haven't heard of it. Like, and it was an audiobook, which was helpful too. I'm like, well, I don't love to do fantasy audio, but I'm like, this is a lighter one, so it should just be more fun and easy to listen to. The narrator was horrible. Horrible. She used this newscaster voice the entire time that was cringy, but because I didn't want to buy this book and I don't have KU, I powered through it. It was really bad, and it made the jokes extra awkward, and a lot of the jokes were already awkward here because like our main character would tell a joke and then explain the joke right after she told it, which then killed the joke for me many times throughout this book. I just found her a little bit too unserious and unbelievable as an attorney, which is a shame because the author herself is an attorney. I'm like, how are you an attorney and you wrote an attorney that's not believable at all? Like, it didn't even make any sense. Basically, like in this one, this woman gets shot by one of her clients who couldn't stand her, gets sent to like a limbo type of place, and it's like where this Grim Reaper is like, be my lawyer or you're gonna go to hell. She's like, well, I'll choose hell then because I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. Then she goes to hell, and hell is just like terrible. It's basically like being in the most boring ass 9 to 5 job for eternity. And she's like, okay, well, I guess I'll be your lawyer. So fun premise, but like the execution was bad. I never bought this lady as a 30-year-old. She frequently read as a ditzy teen, which I hate when I pick up a book where the character is supposed to be like 30 and 40 and they are just way too immature. Like, especially like these stories where it's supposed to be like a strong, independent woman who's been running her own business and stuff like that. It doesn't make any sense to me. I thought the book went on for way too long. I thought the plot was too loose and didn't really make sense, which I would have excused if the smut was good, to be honest, because I've read some books where the plot was so-so, but the smut made up for it. But even the smut here was just not good. Lots of pounding and not really too much romance. Also, the love interest, who is non-black, was very possessive and that was uncomfortable because he wasn't like a alpha outside of the bedroom. It was like when he got in the bedroom, he would be really possessive and gross and be like, and I own you and take that, take that. And I didn't love that, again, especially because they are not the same race either. It was just feeling kind of weird and red flaggy. I didn't like that at all. I didn't see, like, it didn't make for sexy sex scenes. I didn't see what really attracted her to him. And when it kind of flipped the switch to love, I was just like, what the hell? And then as far as like, she's supposed to be helping him get off of a court case where he accidentally reaped the wrong person. We barely get to see the scenes in court. Like, we had like one session in court and then went weeks by without having another session, and she was busy drinking mimosas and living the good life and chatting with her girlfriends down there, and like, it was just so unserious. Not that I expected it to be a super serious book, but like, I just expected it to be a fun, good time, and a good time was not had. The Magic Order Volume 4. The Magic Order has been an up and down comic book series, but this one right here was a convoluted mess. Like, I finished it and I'm just like, what the hell is this? Which was crazy because volume 3 was so good. Like, it really felt like it found its stride. I knew the characters. I felt like the plot was pretty clear. There were some twists and turns I didn't recognize. Like, here, everything was just being thrown at, like, on the comic strip, and it was like whatever goes. Like, the person who was being built up as villain kind of got killed off early, and then we were left with this kind of new villain who was another character who we already knew but we didn't know much about, and then we got this really complicated backstory that didn't make any sense. And, like, I don't even know where the book is going to go next. That's how bad everything was, because everything basically then ends on like a reset almost, which those endings can be really annoying. And it would be one thing if it was just like a memory loss reset, but like this was just a complete reset at the end that I don't even know where it's going to go, because they're basically rebuilding the order from the ground up. So last I read Deja Brew by Celestine Martin, and I didn't love book 1 in this series, so I skipped book 2. But book 3 cover kind of drew me in. I'm like, oh, you know what, maybe it'll be a fun fall book. And the fall vibes were there at first. Like, there were some fun fall festivals and stuff. But the same problem that I had plagued me here, in that the book was way too long, first of all, but also this is such an interesting town, but she doesn't write it to its full potential. Like, we barely know anything about the magic. People are barely using magic here. Like, the Serena makes a wish to be able to redo things after her October just goes awful. So it's kind of like a Groundhog Day situation here for her, except this time she has like a little bit of a flirtation going on with Gus, and they kind of start like a little relationship, and she's trying to see where that goes while also working on her magic that's been on the fritz. I would have loved to see more magic, to be honest. I feel like this book underutilizes the magical aspect so much, and I still don't understand how this world works, because it seems like it's well known that magic exists, but magic mostly exists in their little town. And on top of that, like, I didn't buy the love between the two. Like, some of the sex scenes were good, but I didn't really buy their strong connection. Gus kept, like, referring to his old self over and over again, how he needs to change from his old self, and that just got annoying. Like, it's like, the old Gus was this, the old Gus was that, and I'm like, shut up about the old Gus already. So I didn't love that. I found Serena's like trying to fix her powers a little bit more intriguing, but I don't feel like we got enough of that. And then on top of it, like, there was some drama with some weddings, but since the weddings weren't like about the two main characters, I really didn't care. I didn't even understand why Gus's family wanted him to go to the one wedding so bad. Like, it wasn't making any sense. So yeah, that's been November so far. Not a lot of good reads. Like, mostly bad reads, to be honest. I'm hoping the second half of November picks up. I don't know, we'll see. But let me know if you read any of these books, if any of them were on your TBR. If you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!